when Mulk released, they said the same things. When Article 15 released, from the first week, it was those two, three people who have no understanding of the business of films. They run portals, they are traders. But traders is good. They have no legitimate source of finding numbers either because they are fraud. They have no understanding of the business at all. I am not going on the floors risking lives. That I know only that much. I'm not risking any lives until the time I know that my unit is safe. I am not going to shoot. Irfan's talent, his capability, and his struggle with the mainstream of Bollywood has always been has always looked unjustified. You always thought that the man deserved more and give him more.
Welcome to Speak Easy. My name is Rudrani, and I'm going to be in conversation with Anubhav Sinha. And we are in self isolation mode, both of us, and we obviously are in our individual houses. Anubhav, this seems to be, of course, the new way of living because of the pandemic. There are a lot of things that have changed in the world, and this seems to be like the new normal going forward as well when it comes to social distancing and everything else. Oh, how has your quarantine period been like? And what are the observations that you have sort of made post the pandemic?
The early quarantine period was, uh, personally speaking, I have past 2 years. I made 4 films, so I was very tired, and I wasn't allowing myself to sort of rest. And I was going to move on to another film end of April, so there was too much lined up anyway. But suddenly, this providential button was switched off, and I was told to rest. So I rested for a bit, and obviously, the feeling is that next week is going to end. Next week is going to end, but it didn't end, and we still don't know. 2 months into it, we don't know when will it end. And now it has, like everyone else, it has gone into a retrospective mode when you want to look back and see what you've been up to, what you've laid ahead of yourself. So all that of philosophically speaking, all that's going on, and otherwise in daily life there is some watching, some reading, some attempting to write, and I haven't been able to write at all, and sleeping a lot, sometimes pretending to work out, and yeah, things like those, and chatting with friends. Sometimes I just find a reason to. There is stuff to that can be ordered in, but at least 2 to 3 times I have snuck out and told myself, no, I need to go get it. And I've taken the car into the medicine shop, and I've gone and gotten it just to get a hang of how is the air smelling, what are the roads looking like. But very safe. I haven't stepped out of my car and things like. But and also those have been like 5 minute drives or 3 minute drives.
Sure.
So yeah, and I'm just hoping that it is not the new normal, though my mind knows it is. But I'm hoping that it is not the new normal. We can go back to our offices. We can go back to shaking hands and giving each other a hug and working together and stuff like that. But I don't think we are very close to it.
And I mean, you're right, of course, and we would definitely want to go back to the world out there post the pandemic and post the threat of this gets lesser and becomes safer. This is still like a privileged conversation because we have a house, we have food, and all of that.
Yeah.
Of course, there's so much uh, things happening outside, whether it comes to the daily wage workers, the migrant laborers, and other people as well. Who've been suffering, who don't have that much enough. How do you look at this entire crisis situation? What are your observations regarding it, and what are your thoughts?
I think the people of the country have behaved like 3 million times better than the government of the country. So people have gone out and I know of a group of actors in Aramnagar self cooking for hundreds of people a day, raising money, and doing things like those. And uh, uh, you know, uh, people are donating into the PM Cares Fund, and whichever other fund that is meant to be doing good for the society. But what one is seeing in the streets, what one is seeing in the hospitals, leaves a lot to be desired. So this pandemic reaffirms a lot of my faith in the people of this country. People have actually really stepped out of their comfort and safe zones. People in the streets distributing food, distributing chappals and clothes and biscuits and feeding stray animals, and they have actually stepped out of their safe zones, which was not meant to be their job, which was meant to be the job of the government. And so, yes, the people of the country should step out and help the government, but then it should not end up becoming only them doing it. So many of migrant laborers out there in the streets, walking hundreds of kilometers with their pregnant wives and 1 month old kids. And every morning you wake up to 7 deaths, 10 deaths, and today is 24, as you know. It's very depressing. See, there are three things. Most of the people who are employed in our business are well paid people. Even the lowest rung is very well paid. So, so I'm talking about people who work regularly. So there's a big section who doesn't get employed very regularly. So I'm not talking about them right now. I will. So the first half is people who get employed regularly. They're well off people. They can afford to not work for 2 3 months, 4 months, and still be buying food for their family and even their EMIs probably, unless something unprecedented happens to them, then they will need help. So those people are doing fine. And in the beginning, when the lockdown started, I don't know if you remember me, Sudhir Mishra, Anurag Kashyap, we were all
Correct.
chatting on Twitter, and we thought of a way. I said it might be a good idea that every unit has like 200 people. So if you reach out to those 200 people and say, hello, if you need any help, call me.
Yeah.
So if it is within my means, I will do it myself, or I'll raise money for you. I'll make phone calls, whatever. I'm there. A lot of times it's very good to have a phone number that you can call. So that message went out from me to my heads of departments to these people. So far, I haven't received a phone call. That means they're doing fine. And now the question of the people who don't get employed on a daily basis. For them, the associations, like yesterday, Javed Saab put it out, the IPRS, the producers associations, the technicians associations, they have funds that they accumulate to help people in need. So they have reached out, they have been distributing food and whatever people need. So I think the film and television and music industry, so to say, the entertainment industry, has been looking after our people who might need help in a very good and organized manner. I'm very, very pleasantly, I shouldn't say surprised, but it's a very pleasant feeling to know that none of us, at least our industry, I am not aware of, and I am aware of a lot. I'm not aware of people in dire straits.
Sure. I had a conversation with Tapsi just recently, and we discussed about the phenomenal response that you all again got once Thappad got released on OTT.
Yeah.
And she very firmly also believed that if we would have been in the theaters, we would have got a longer run. So I obviously want your thoughts on that. You were obviously extremely emotional when uh, there were some undignified things being written when the movie was released. You all got a lot of love. Critically, I think the most acclaimed film when it came to all of that. But you did get really, you know, emotional when it came to that as well, which was, of course, because of the tonality of the article in question. So, on both of these points, if you could give me your thoughts.
So, the film ran in theaters for like 2 weeks and 2 or 3 days. And during this time, the film ended up doing roughly about 32, 33 crores at the box office. And my going by my track record, the past two films before Thappad, my films did like 7 to 8 weeks in theaters.
Yeah.
And going by that, the such films, they become very consistent with very small numbers, but very consistent. So even the movie theaters, the exhibitors, who are the most ruthless community, also because they run very high expenses on an hourly basis, they take the movie out. But whether it was Mulk or Article 15 or Thappad, they would not take it out because it just keeps doing good numbers,
Correct.
reasonable numbers. So we were expecting to do like 10, 12 crores more, or maybe 8, maybe 10. One doesn't know. We had fantastic numbers, and the amount of love and respect and that is unprecedented. I mean, after Mulk, I thought this is the maximum that I would ever get. Then Article changed that. Then the same feeling, and Thappad has done it again. So now, as a filmmaker, I'm very worried, concerned. You can't get used to so much of love for all of your films. But anyway, I got very upset and emotional about. What happens is people don't. The business of cinema is passing them by. They don't understand the business anymore. And these are people who speak the loudest, and they start. And when you're in the middle of the release of a film, then something like this is written about your film, then you get really upset. And I also believe that they should also be put in place. They have no clue. When Mulk released, they said the same things. When Article 15 released, from the first week, it was those two, three people who have no understanding of the business of films. They run portals, they are traders. But traders is good. They have no legitimate source of finding numbers either. They just sit in their coffee shops and they talk to each other. They say, "Are chal rahi hai, ye kharab ho gayi hai," and then they put it out in their portals. They need to be called out because they are fraud. They have no understanding of the business at all. I can sit them down and take tuitions for weeks. They have no idea. And so I was trying to, I got upset. I remember I was in the hills and I was driving one place to the other and I got upset. It was probably an hour and a half of me ranting. I still don't know if I should have done it or not. But I have been that person who likes to put people in their places when they do something wrong. So I did that. But that doesn't matter to me because people who go watch my films are the people who fund my films. I mean, sometimes it becomes a different corporate house, and then sometimes becomes a different corporate house. So people who give me the love are the people who go watch it, who pay for the films.
That, of course, Ayushman's film, Mr. Bachchan's film, Gulabo Sitabo, was announced that it's having a digital release and everybody gets to see it from their houses and all of that. While there was, of course, a lot of positivity coming from a lot of people and excitement for the release of the film, there, of course, came out the furore from the other side, which was INOX, which was the exhibitor's side, and they wrote out a statement. So, what are your thoughts on this thing that is obviously right now going to go on for a long time because there are many more releases going to happen on digital.
So for at least a year, uh, it's not going to be business as usual. Things will evolve. I mean, we are all trying to look into the future and predict what will happen. The truth is that nobody really knows exactly what will happen. So there are two kinds of films. There's one big blockbuster theater kind of films. the Rohit Shetty films, the big bonanza films. And then there is Gulabo Sitabo. Now, Gulabo Sitabo can still probably, because of the kind of film that it is, can afford to go to an OTT platform directly and live. But I wouldn't want to watch Sooryavanshi or 83 on an ATT platform. I mean, I would love to watch those big films in theaters. And movies are about theaters, right? There's no discussion on that. But these are very, very extraordinary times. So what we are going to see in times to come, according to me, is that these big ones, the bonanza films, are going to pile up for releases. So like you've been seeing in the past, that the bigger films have to book their release dates in advance in like 3 to 4 years, 2 years, sometimes 3 years. So Sooryavanshi was scheduled to be in April. Then there was 83 in May. Then there's June. There was big films. Then there's more coming up in August, October. Then there is an Amir Khan film. Then there is, I think even James Cameron is this year. So now what will happen? If we don't release any of these big bonanza films starting April until say November, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, 7 months, 7 films, at least 7 films, actually 14 big films, India and Hollywood put together. These 14 films will pile up and they will need screen space in these theaters. And then there'll be no room for Gulabo Sitabo, and then there will be no room for Thappad, and then there'll be no room for Mulk, because, and rightfully so, I don't blame them. Then what happens to Gulabo Sitabo? Then you will suddenly say that, these are small films, I'll give you one show, I'll give you 2 shows. So this is a logical way out to the problem. These same movie theaters are going to have problems releasing Sooryavanshi and 83, such big films, because there'll be no screen space. They'll be squeezed because there are more films lined up for January and February and March and April. Of course, some films are also getting postponed, but we're going to get cramped for screen space. So I think it's not really, while it is very important to protect our theaters, but we need to understand each other's anxieties, and we need to stand by each other, and we need to, as an industry, go through this and survive.
But Anubhav, tell me, which are your films that you are working on, which have now come to a standstill? I know that you had Anik, that I obviously want to know a little bit more about, and a few more that you are planning to. So tell me about it.
I have no idea. I'm writing, I'm ideating, I'm trying to think of more stories. I don't know when I'm shooting. I don't know when I'm editing. I don't know when I'm releasing. There is Abhi To Party Shuru Hui Hai, which was thankfully shot, and because I was doing so much that it just got ignored and neglected, and Sony was kind enough to have put up with me. And but that is something that I'm working on the post production of. And besides that, uh, you know, there was one film, like you said, it was ready to be shot in end of April. But I am not going on the floors risking lives. That I know only that much. I'm not risking any lives until the time I know that my unit is safe. I am not going to shoot. And it's not only about me. The, the last run, which never gets to interact with me, which is works somewhere like 20 meters away from me,
Sure.
that person has to be safe. Once we are there, then or if the world doesn't go that far, if the world doesn't become that safe ever in near future, then maybe we need to relook at the films that we can make, then maybe we will not be able to make those films. Then maybe we'll maybe able to make Thappads, which are mostly contained in houses and rooms,
Yeah.
and they will probably become more viable films than the one that I am supposed to shoot next, which is in the jungles.
We lost two of our greatest actors. You know, Irfan and Rishi ji. I know you were affected. Everybody was affected. It felt like a personal loss to a lot of us because we've been so connected to them through their art. How do you remember each of them?
Most people aren't aware that I have known Irfan since '89, even before I came to Bombay. हाँ मतलब मैंने और इरफान ने एक दूसरे से 20-20 रुपए उधार लिए हैं दिल्ली में. So I've also worked with him very early in my career on a show called Saturday Suspense. Then he was a part of another pilot that I did called Seher, which eventually went on air on Star. But more than that, and I was not one of his best friends. So let me make it very clear. I wasn't in regular touch with him or meeting him very often, but we are from the same batch that came to Bombay like within a span of 4 or 5 years. And that 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 feeling of being from the same class, same batch, and he's probably the first person to go from that batch. And Irfan has been someone that personally I actually knew Shutapa better, his wife, because we were working on a script together very early in our careers. So Irfan's talent, his capability, and his struggle with the mainstream of Bollywood has always been has always looked unjustified. You always thought that the man deserved more and give him
Yeah,
more.
true.
And he kept on doing the same stuff. Sometimes he faltered, meandered, did some of those films where he failed miserably even as an actor. But he kept going back to the things that he liked and believed in. And just when that cinema was becoming mainstream, just when you were going to get your dues, everything that you worked for, you suddenly got to go, which is so unfortunate. Which I think this is one of the most unfair deaths. And Rishiji's, uh, I just made one film with him, and I didn't know him at all before that. But uh, such a delightful person to have met, to have, and it was such a great experience. I was told I was apprehensive when I started working with him कि वो थोड़े से moody हैं, थोड़े से गुस्सैल हैं. But I knew somehow that I was going to do well with him, and we got along very well. We would fight all day, we would laugh all day. One day he said, "अरे पूरी पिक्चर खत्म हो गई, मैंने दारू नहीं पी आपके साथ." तो मैंने कहा, "हाँ सर, दारू तो नहीं पी." बोले, "आज रात को बैठते हैं." So that night he came to my room and then we drank together, and which was a privilege to drink with Rishi Kapoor. And then I met him. The last time I met him was at Mr. Bachchan's Diwali party where I saw him. He had come back from New York. So I saw him at a distance and I ran to him and I hugged him. And he said, "क्या कब शुरू कर रहे पिक्चर? चली 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 पिक्चर बनाते पिक्चर बनाते पिक्चर बनाते." मैंने कहा, "हाँ सर, बनाते हैं अब आ गए, मैं आता हूँ, मिलता हूँ." फिर ना मैं गया ना मैं मिला. तो एक वो अधूरा रिश्ता होता है ना, वो रिश्ता ऐसा था, उसकी पॉसिबिलिटी ऐसी थी कि वो बहुत लंबा जाता.
Watch E-Town News Monday to Friday at 9:30 p.m. only on Zoom.